Well, it's a take. I want to tell you a story. I'm sitting here in a hospital room, um, and I'm feeling pretty healthy right now. They got me back to normal, but you could go anytime. And I want to tell a story before I go. This happened in 1978, and my grandmother had just passed. The funeral was over. I came home with some LSD, um, you know, one for me and one for my brother Tom, um, and told him people were having pretty good trips off of one half of a hit. Mine, I showed him, was a double. It had a little green tiger, a little green dragon, and a little red tiger on it. And I was off well within a half an hour, you know. Usually it took me, I, I, I don't know exactly when Tom got off, um, but I was off well within a half an hour. Streamers and ladders and you betcha the whole moving, grooving, dynamic deal was going on. How do I tell this story? It's a true story and it had events and everything. But I was off by midnight. Um, Tom and I, were enjoying ourselves. We're just, shooting the shit and talking. And I was, feeling like hell. I was feeling so low. I was schizophrenic already. It didn't bring me enlightenment. Being schizophrenic is not necessarily enlightenment. LSD is not necessarily enlightenment. Under perfect circumstances, which only power can decide, do the coming together of schizophrenia and LSD lead to enlightenment. And it's very, very rare. This was my fourth acid trip. I dropped after this about 100 times and got no replay of this ecstatic, extraordinary, fabulous nothingness that I experienced that night. So Tom and I were sitting on our beds, kind of cross-legged, kind of Indian pose. It's like every few seconds a wave would go over us, and it's like we try to describe the inexplicability of that truth, It was an inexplicability of that truth where, it was, every energy is a truth. This is a truth. This broadcast is a truth. Even though you may not believe it, you may think it's a lie. Even if it was a lie, it'd be a truth. It'd be the truth of a lie, So Tom and I got tired talking. and Tom went out to look at the moon. Oh, I was going to look up the moon phases. The moon was pretty near full too, I believe. It was just one of those crazy nights, one of those nights. I decided to turn my attention inward and meditate, sitting up like I had lying down a couple of times before on acid. I made, the space opened up inside of me, and then, the space flew away, and I was kind of in a space I call the network, because John Lilly called it the network, where you're around, you're on the edge of the universe, worshiping a God that doesn't or does exist. I mean, you're around the edge of the universe, kind of worshiping as directing the reality to be, and everybody's joyful there. This isn't the matrix of the movie. This is the matrix of actual fact, and everybody's joyous there. I pushed it a little deeper, got a little stiller and made another level where, like, it was 3, just 3, not the number 3, kind of a crystalline 3 that, is God and you conjoined, It's like an unfoldment of the 7 that seems to be the matrix, the network. The network. I want to call it the network. I don't want to call it the matrix, because people call the realm of psychosis that this universe seems to represent the matrix, and this was the network, and it was pretty sane, and it's really beautiful. You're out of yourself and converged with all other beings, and then beyond that, there's the 3. Maybe some other presence was there. All I remember is just that it was 3. And then kind of stepped into that crystal, kind of went into it. I never came out. It disappeared. Everything disappeared. There was nothing. There was nothing that you could even say was something that was nothing. There was just nothing. It still contained all knowledge, all knowledges. But it wasn't something you could say was something. And at that time, I saw my life in its entirety, and I don't remember, I remember bits and pieces of things, but it's pretty personal, and the most personal things seem to be the ones that catch in your mind, not when you're, smoking a joint and drinking Bacardi or something, and it's pretty mundane and stupid. My whole life passed before my eyes, and then I started to come back. out of that nothingness, you know. Actually, I was coming back out of that nothingness, it seems, maybe when I was going in or maybe when I was coming out. At some point, there was just nothing, no being, no me, no you, no anything, nothing you could call nothing, no sound, light. It wasn't black either. There, it just was, you know, somehow or other, it just was, because, and I can only know that out of deduction, because I'm back, I'm here. I lived, I came back to sitting in my, oh yeah, I was doing a breath exercise when I went into this state. I was doing a breath exercise where as the Buddha breathed out, the sadhu breathed in, you know, or something like that. But as I expanded with my breath, the Buddha got smaller. As I got smaller with contracting my breath, the Buddha got larger. The Buddha breathed in, the Baba breathed out. What else was there? Yes, this breath exercise was given to me to remember. I experienced a rise along my spine with each breath of arising along my spine into coming out the crown of my head into a lifetime. I lived a lifetime, each breath. Then as I breathed back in, it dissolved. Maybe I died in that lifetime. I don't remember. I don't remember these lifetimes, but I lived them. I could track the winds in my body. The winds going to the left and right and up and down along my spine. And then I came to a level where, you know, I'm tracking the winds, and the one that went to the left seemed to be evil. And the one that went to the right seemed to be good. I've been recording sideways all along. Well, this is Greg's journey through the looking glass. I was tracking the winds, and the ones that went to the left seemed up and down, seemed to be evil, and the ones that went to the right seemed to be good, and I started fighting with myself, fighting that evil wind, you know. I think this is really where I became totally schizophrenic, but yeah, I don't know. I wandered around my parents' household, watched, you know, the Bubblicious cartoon, the Bubblicious commercial. I mentioned the Bubblicious commercial because it was a fact. It was the ultimate bubble, and it showed expansion into infinite space. Was the interpretation of the Bubblicious commercial. Gosh, the Antichrist. There was a movie out then. I can't remember who it was, but he was the Antichrist. And I was the Antichrist. You know, I feared. I was in fear. Since I couldn't stop those evil winds, I was in fear of myself being actually the ultimate evil. Yeah, and you know, things like walls disappeared, and the hollowness of space appeared. You know, the checkerboard of the walls breathed pretty ferociously. I remember seeing my sister, who was eating toast, and she pulled the toast away from her mouth as if vomiting. And to me, it was like, yes, this is what it's like, you know. This is what this world is like. It's like a cesspool of vomit. And I tried to find counseling and consolation with, I have a very autistic brother. And we played he had a pinball game, a manual pinball game, a tin and plastic affair. I thought he was incognizant of his circumstances, and he pushed the pinball machine over, and it said Dumbo Ride, and that was me, because, you know, I was such a dummy that I thought he was unaware when he was totally aware. And both my sister and my brother, all of them were totally aware. But I was left unenlightened. I was totally unaware. There were things like remembering having to believe. Somehow or other, if I could put together the idea of having to believe, where having to believe is, there are just empty spaces and planets and whatever, you know, that you could instantly slip off into and inhabit. But you had to believe that this was the planet you lived on. And it's kind of hard, because the planet, that the reality that I now inhabited was just a memory, memories pieced together in my mind of some place that I'd never been before. You know, it wasn't like it was that my life itself at that moment were memories that congealed in my mind in a certain sense, and they were the reality that I was living in. My life was only consciousness of these memories. So, and having to believe is having to believe that these memories are your life. You know, that's in a succinct sentence really what having to believe is. In the words of Don Juan, of Carlos Castaneda fame, found in Tales of Power. Anyway, I just never came down after that. My world was shattered. My life was over. I did come down, and it's like it didn't get any better. Like I said, my world was shattered. My mind was shattered. Like I said, I took LSD maybe 100 times after that, looking for that beautiful spot that would put me back together again, would put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and he'd be a whole man. But it never happened. And I've spent my whole life looking for that fabulous space of extraordinary emptiness and nothingness. Nothingness, nothing, 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 not even nothing. So that was so nurturing and healing and beautiful and incredible and established, you know? So pardon me for the hiccups. Yeah, nothing from nothing is nothing. And nothing that went up never comes down. And nothing was ever found but memories that were me. Good night.